And welcome to yet another edition of Talking with Springfield Township, the communication brought to you by Waycross Community Media about the township you know and love. I have broken out of the studio and fortunately brought into the fine arms of the fire department here in Springfield Township with Chief Leininger. I'm glad that we can be a part of your office today.
We're glad you're here today. We're always excited when you come in to visit.
Well, thank you for extending this handshake, but we've got a lot of great things to talk about.
We do.
The important crux of today's communique is, of course, about paramedicine. It is a new term that is probably not on everybody's tongue, but will be a part heavily here in Springfield Township.
Will be.
Let's start with the basic definition. It sounds easy, paramedicine, but what does it mean to you as a chief and to the township?
Well, it's also referred to as community paramedicine.
Okay.
Think about what we do as a fire department. We do EMS, Emergency Medical Services. So when somebody's hurt, they call 911. It activates our radios, our tones here in the firehouse, and we respond. We assess the injury, we transport the patient to the hospital, and they're taken care of. Community paramedicine goes beyond that. It's more of the non-emergency care that now we're allowed to offer as a result of a legislative change that occurred back in June of 2015. So before that, we were only allowed to respond and offer paramedic care if there was a 911 dispatch. But now we can be proactive with care, treat more of the chronic illnesses, rather than respond to just a 911 call. It's opening the doors to a lot of opportunity for us to really make a difference in the quality of care with our residents here in Springfield Township. You know, Jason, we're seeing there's a tremendous need for what I call referral services. As somebody ages and they want to stay in their home longer, and say that they become a widow and they're by themselves and they don't know how to navigate the sophisticated healthcare system that we have today, which we're very fortunate. We have some of the best healthcare in the country just within close proximity here to Springfield Township. However, it's difficult for a senior, for that matter, to know how to navigate it. If they need services, especially non-emergency services, how do they get there? What if they just need basic transportation? What if they need pharmaceuticals? What if they're suffering from depression or some other mental illness that they're not even aware of? And so that complicates matters. And a lot of times we're seeing that the reason for the 911 call is because maybe a chronic illness that they have, such as depression, where they're not taking their medicine the way they should. And then let's take an example of a diabetic.
Okay, that's a perfect example.
They get up in the morning, they're suffering from anxiety, depression, maybe early onset dementia. And so they don't take their meds, or they don't eat right. And so in the afternoon, they have a diabetic emergency. That's a 911 call. We respond, and we can assist and administer the appropriate care for that. But really the underlying issue is really their depression. And right now, there's really no way for us to get involved or to do any type of intervention. Now with this grant, which we received just a month ago, we are now going to be able to develop a community paramedicine model that will focus on some of those chronic illnesses, behavioral health issues, such as depression, such as anxieties, and maybe early stage dementia, where we can be proactive with our care and really make a difference in the quality of life for our residents.
It definitely sounds like you're coming within the community. You know, you are a part of that community. When we think the fire, they're always there. They're coming in. But now it sounds, with this idea of paramedicine, to be an as you said, an active member of the community. So now we're not only looking after when you need us, but whenever you need us.
That's
correct?
Oh, I love that term. Absolutely, love that term. And it's really on a non-emergency setting. Most of the time when people have contact with the fire department, it's during an emergency.
It's true.
But there's such an opportunity to be more proactive and help people navigate through the maze to find the appropriate health care. It's not just take you to the ER and then you're on your own.
Right.
What we want to do is be able to go into someone's home and assist them in order to be an advocate. And I'm using the term referrals. And maybe we can refer someone to the appropriate care, and so they can get the mental health care that they need. Maybe it's social services that they need. Maybe it's just Meals on Wheels. We see hoarding. We see people living in poor conditions. And if we can help make referrals to some of our nonprofit agencies, and we call them community resources, where, such as Council on Aging, a nonprofit organization primarily for seniors, they offer tremendous resources just for asking. Now, they do bill Medicare and Medicaid and so on, but still, it's resources available for the asking, and we can help them navigate through there.
As part of this, it sounds like you're able to be that mediator to be able to kind of nudge them along in areas that they may not want to admit themselves. As people age, we see a little bit of a stubbornness, so to speak.
Absolutely. Yes, I experienced that with my parents, so yeah.
And I do as well. But I see that, you mentioned, they want to stay in their home longer. My grandmother was very fortunate to be able to do that, but there are other people that won't. But she was very stubborn about it.
Yes.
You will wheel me out of this house the last time. And so you're becoming almost that mediator to be able to say, I don't want to suggest this. However, maybe you would like to talk about this, or
Exactly.
Being more of that friend and mentor, as opposed to being like a family member who would say, I insist you being in an institution or an assisted living facility, kind of that helping hand, so to speak.
Well, and not only can we help the patient, but we can also help that family member. Because if this is new to a family member as well.
Absolutely.
They want the best for their parent or their loved one, and they don't understand or how to navigate the healthcare system either. So we can help them as well. So we want to be their advocate. We want to provide resources, educate them, and there's no pressure. And it really, for us, it's a matter of just picking up the phone with their permission, obviously, and work together to connect them to the appropriate resources that they need. We're also seeing that a lot of times they don't go to the most appropriate resource. They go to their family physician, who may not be able to handle their social service needs. They need a social service worker, or maybe they just need transportation. How is their general practitioner going to help them with some of their transportation needs?
It's not like it used to be where they would make a house call.
Exactly.
There's nothing like that.
You're right. A lot different today, a lot different. So, and so that's why we feel that there is an opportunity for us to do more. Think about it. As a paramedic, we're trained in emergency medicine. And maybe if you think of this as a big ball, and half of that ball is the emergency piece that we live in. That's the emergency services. Then there's another 50% of that ball that has opportunity for us to be more proactive in chronic care. Think of emergency as acute care. You fall, you break your arm, you call 911, we come and pick you up, we take you to the hospital, we've done our job.
Right.
But now there's a piece to that chronic illness that we want to get involved in. We want to intervene and provide intervention with referring people to the appropriate care that they need. And really what we're focusing on here in Springfield Township is more of the behavioral mental health.
Sure.
Depression. Jason, we are seeing that it's almost an epidemic, because think of every time you turn on the television, what do you hear?
It's never good news.
It's never good news. It's negative. We're surrounded 24 hours a day now we're inundated with negative information.
Sure.
It's visual impressions. It's, people they're struggling to try and find something good. And so that's it's influencing their life. And so we're seeing a lot of depression, a lot of anxieties. People are worried about, as they age, having to leave their homes. I just read an article recently that they're saying because of the baby boomers, which is me, because of the baby boomers, the the average age for somebody living in their home is now going to be into the late 80s. So, and they're going to want services being brought to them.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to go somewhere. They want the services brought to them. So we are planning. This is all about planning, having a vision of where our EMS services are going to go. And we want to guide that path. We think we can be very proactive. We think we can provide some of these ancillary services that won't be too demanding on us, since
Sure.
we're doing it primarily as a referral. But it's a great opportunity for collaboration. And that's the
Exactly.
key today. It's collaborating with healthcare hospitals, with social services, nonprofit agencies, council on aging, people working cooperatively. All of these are tremendous resources.
You're looking at county and statewide, I am assuming.
Exactly, yes.
And,
yes.
and keeping it, again, within that family and umbrella of everything.
Yes.
Just kind of getting it all together. You are joining us here on Talking with Springfield Township. I am with Chief Leininger here in his office talking the great new idea of paramedicine here within the township.
Yes.
Chief, you have brought some great innovations through your tenure here, and this being a brand new one. How did this idea come about? Obviously, you wanted to bring something new and innovative. You were able to get this wonderful grant that's going to be able to help you do that. Where did this idea and shift come from? And has that shift slowly gotten into the building itself, into the firehouse? Because I know that sometimes change is not easy.
It's true. This has actually been an idea that's been floating around for some time. Actually, it's been a frustration, I guess, call it, for most of our paramedics who want to get involved more. When they go to an emergency call and they're in somebody's home and they realize that there are additional things that are needed to affect the quality of care or just the quality of life for an individual who might be living alone, who might have fallen because there isn't appropriate fall protection in their home, who may be struggling who might be at a stage where they're non-ambulatory and they're just not getting around and they need a ramp for their front steps or something like this. And we could only go so far as emergency medical services. We were really limited to what we could do.
Sure.
But because of some legislative change, we're now being able to be more proactive and address those needs. So while we're in somebody's home, not only are we focusing on their care, but also we're kind of looking around and seeing if there is social services needs. Meals on Wheels, maybe they're just not eating properly, and we notice that there's a nutrition deficit there.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking just general cleanliness of their living environment. Are there bugs? Are there things that just, again, affect the quality of life? And just basic necessities that they need.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're not being addressed, then what happens is my paramedics come back, and then they send information to me, and then at that point, then I make a referral to our community paramedicine coordinator,
Mm-hmm.
who then makes a phone call, follows up, and then we try and be proactive and schedule an appointment with that individual, and then make referrals. And in most cases, we're able to get some type of service for that individual by going through nonprofits such as Council on Aging, or in some cases referring them to the appropriate mental health agency where we've been assisted by TriHealth.
You've brought in two key components that we haven't really discussed. We started talking a little bit about the staff. We can obviously talk about the EMTs and those who are going out and taking
Yeah.
care of those runs and things. You as chief and this other new piece, this paramedicine coordinator, is this is obviously something that you're going to have to be training your EMTs, your men, eyes. Their eyes have to kind of shift now when they're out on the run. Is this something that is different to your staff? And is it easy to train? Or is it something innate that's already built in from the station that you've ingrained in them, or what they've come back to from training?
Well, they have the basic skills to do it. And in some cases, probably even advanced skills. It's really communication, Jason. Really, when you deal with these individuals that are suffering from depression, or a lot of times they're alone. It's really just basic communication. They trust us. So the biggest hurdle is really just to get beyond their front door.
Gotcha.
And really, since we've already made contact with them on an emergency basis, where we've rendered care, we've taken them to the hospital, we've had dialogue with them, maybe in the back of an ambulance. So we've established that relationship. And then when they come back home, then we follow up with a phone call. And most cases, they'll invite us in. And then we have an opportunity to sit down and really just listen to them and kind of hear what their situation is and really what they need. In some cases, they're not taking their meds because they don't have a way to get to the drugstore to get their meds. Or they're living by their own and they don't have any family to take care of them. Without good neighbors or without a church or something like that, they're on their own.
And a good ear could always help.
And we can help facilitate that, put them in contact with people that can check on them on a regular basis. COA, for example, contact a case manager, and it puts them on a regular basis for various services that they can offer. For more severe cases where we recognize that they are suffering from depression, then we need to contact the appropriate mental health professional. And with that case, I'm excited to even just kind of show you at this point really what we have in mind here. The term telemedicine is what we want to use. For example, if you're suffering from depression and I'm having a conversation with you and we want to bring in a mental health professional, what I can do is with a tablet, I can contact a medical health professional via, and think of it today, people with their Facebook. FaceTime.
Okay. Skype, anything like that?
That we can, with a tablet, have a three-way conversation perhaps with a nurse practitioner, with a pharmacist, with a physician, with a mental health professional, and have this dialogue. So it's not necessarily our treatment, but again, we're facilitators. We are now bringing this physician in to introduce you to this mental health professional.
And again, with a friendly face, whom they've already introduced into the home, you're introducing someone that you would not want them to harm each other.
Exactly. So it's trust. It's, at this point, there's a certain comfort level. They get to meet a physician or a nurse practitioner on the other end. There's face-to-face conversation.
And I was just going to say, going back to the idea of an aging community, facial recognition is probably the key to that. I know my father being the culprit of it. I don't want to talk to somebody on the phone, but if they could see somebody and act as if they're within that room together, conversation changes.
Exactly. So what we're really excited about, the telemedicine component, which is really the technology that allows us to interact with a medical professional on the other end of a tablet.
So we have all of these components, and this other key component being your paramedicine coordinator. How does this individual now go into the fold here in the firehouse?
Well, we refer the cases that we see in the field go to this individual. Then the individual decides whether or not there's really a legitimate need there. We want to make sure that we don't waste our time. So in some cases, it might just be that it's a recommendation for Meals on Wheels. So we contact Council on Aging. Or it might be that it's more mental health related. And so that's more involved. At that point, then we would contact mental health professionals and get maybe a case manager involved and decide kind of how we go here. But regardless, we're not taking over the care. All we're doing is referral services. And we're trying to build the confidence of the individual or resident so that we can act on their behalf. We are facilitating. We are an advocate for our residents. And that's what we want to do. We don't want to be responsible for the care.
Right.
That's not, we don't want to breach too far away from our emergency medical services. Within our protocols, we can't really go outside our scope of practice that are outlined within our EMS protocols. However, we feel that role of being a patient advocate and making sure people get to the proper resources, that's our role. That's what we want to do. That's our goal.
When obviously this has come into effect, it's been ongoing. You've gotten this grant. You probably haven't seen a lot of results yet, but what is your general feel from the township now? And of course, we'll obviously talk in a year's time from now and talk
I'm
about
really
it.
excited about
I am
it.
as well. But what is your feel thus far? I mean, this is just the kickoff. How are you feeling about this, and where you can almost envision it going when we sit back down here next year?
Well, first of all, I'm just really, really excited and really happy that people have embraced this. Right now, there's still some skepticism out there about whether or not we could get paid for this, and whether it's going to be a burden to our staff. I mean, right now we're an extremely busy fire department.
Sure.
And do we have the staff to be able to go out and do this? And I can tell you right now, we don't. We don't have the staff available to do this. But through this grant, we're able to have a paramedic dedicated to be proactive and actually do performance measurement. Actually go out there and really see if we're making a difference. Right now, it's kind of all in theory. And we've done a couple pilot programs, and we're constantly testing and measuring and so on. But our goal is to develop that model that we feel that will not only work in Springfield Township, but perhaps other fire departments, not only within Hamilton County,
Sure.
but maybe regionally or even maybe countrywide, might be able to embrace this model and be able to make a difference in their residents and the people that visit their community.
I was going to say, I think we've seen that within communities around us,
Yes.
townships and the like, have started such small pilot programs and have branched out. I think this sounds like one of those type of programs that, as you said, as the baby boomers are watching their parents go through what eventually they will be going through, and then my generation will be doing the same. These are things that we're going to eventually see pile upon pile, and if we don't understand our aging community and their needs now, how will it be 3 generations down the road?
You're absolutely right. And I think nursing homes, they're going to be skilled nursing facilities. So people are going to stay in their houses longer, are going to need more care as they age, but I think they're going to live longer too. Again, I just read recently that the percentage of people living beyond 100 has doubled in the last 10 years. I mean, they're talking by 2050, which sounds a long way off.
Which really isn't.
Which it's really not. They're saying, people, that there's going to be almost 1 million people that are going to be over 100 years old. I mean, it's just commonplace. So how are we going to be able to sustain these services when people are going to demand them in their homes? So this is just to get a start. We want to find out volume. What's the demand?
Sure.
We want to find out really what's the service demand that we need. So volume, is it depression? Is it mental health? Is it what services really are needed out there? So we need to do a needs assessment.
Sure.
That's part of the modeling that we're going to do. One is whether or not we could get paid for it. Right now we can't. So there's going to be some research to see whether or not Medicare will pay us for these types of services. If they don't, I don't know if the program is sustainable.
Okay.
It's not fair to go out and increase taxes to our residents to support a program like this unless we feel that we've got justification for it, we've got the performance measurement, and we've done the proper assessment to validate the program. And then the other piece is, can we afford the technology to do this? Technology is going to be constantly changing. Right now, this is a relatively inexpensive thing, but who knows in the future, as anything that's driven by software, there's a shelf life.
And what's the next evolution there?
Exactly.
Which we don't know.
We don't know. And that's part of that grant as well, is to look at the telemedicine, the technologies, the cost, the manpower needed to do this appropriately and effectively, and then associated costs such as supplies and all the other ancillary services that go with it. But I am so optimistic. I've had great response and support from TriHealth Corporate Health. We collaborated together to apply for a grant.
And able to receive it as well.
Through the Bethesda Inc. Foundation. They awarded us a $200,000 grant over the next 12 months to do the research and to do the performance measurements, and it's pretty much proof of concept. We will go back to Bethesda Inc. a year from now, and we will take all of our information, our performance measurements, our assessments, and our recommendations back to the Bethesda board, and at that point, hopefully, they will give us a full implementation grant.
Sure.
And then you'll be seeing services like this offered on a regular basis, and then who knows where it's going to go on.
I'm sure there's going to be some changing, some morphing in all aspects of it. I mean, it is still in its very infant stages. But to know that you have a very large health corporation standing beside you on this, and feeling the confidence that the township can succeed in this is a wonderful, wonderful way to start. Again, we've seen a lot of collaboration in the changes that have gone through the township. This is one way to show that the township is making a difference, one way and another, with what we've got.
Well, the Board of Trustees have been so supportive.
Absolutely.
With this. They could say, hey, don't waste your time, but instead they're like, go for it, go out there and let's find it. Let's be the best at what we can be, and let's, a lot of times we've had success with some innovations, and they let me kind of try some things. There's a joke around here about pilot programs, because we're always doing a pilot. We're always testing things. We're always trying to innovate and find new ideas. And we've had some successes. We've had some that weren't so successful, but they allow me to try. And what a great environment to work in.
Exactly.
When you have that type of support and you have the freedom to try new things. And really they're very proactive with collaboration. I mean, not only with, in this case, with TriHealth, but really with other healthcare agencies and even with our neighboring jurisdictions. I mean, they're very, very proactive when it comes to collaboration.
But hasn't that helped you as a chief? I mean, probably, let's think 10, 15 years ago, would you have imagined you coming up with a number of these pilot programs, being allowed to do them, and then watching the implementation at this point?
No. But I think it goes back to around 2008 when we ran into some financial hardships.
Sure.
And everybody did.
Yes.
And we all had to look for better ways of doing things. And things got tight. And things were scary. And there was a chance that people could lose their jobs. And it was really difficult. But through collaborations and through those difficult times and struggle, we were able to branch out a little bit. And we were forced to try new things. And we had some successes. And we had conversations. And it was just, we stepped back and said, wow, that really worked. Maybe it's time we drop our egos at the door and we don't have turf issues, and we start sharing. And what a great thing. And we've had great successes.
You're actually working for the same common goal.
Exactly. And that's it. It is. And it's improve our safety. We do what's called mutual aid. We respond and help out our neighboring jurisdictions with fire response and EMS. And it's reciprocating. So when I need help, they will come in and help me. I reciprocate and go back and do whatever I can to assist them when they need additional resources. So we've had some really good successes with our collaboration efforts.
Well, again, this sounds like it's going to be one of those successes, and I cannot wait to come back a year from now to discuss what we've got.
Yes, because right now I know it's kind of vague, and people are kind of like, well, what is this thing, telemedicine and paramedicine stuff? But a year from now, I hope I can come back and say, here it is. Here's the model, Jason. And here it is, and it's got those components identified and what we've done, and here we are, and a clear vision of where we're going to take this thing. Because this is what it's all about. It's a vision. We're developing today, but ultimately, this is the service model probably 5 years down the road and beyond. So we're excited about it to be the pioneers.
I'm glad that we're able to talk about it on the ground floor, and this is exciting news. So until next year, but obviously we'll see each other sooner.
I hope so.
There will be more information on the website, obviously, as well as at trustees meetings, and as well as here on the show. So we look forward to bringing you back and talking about it once again.
I also welcome people an opportunity if they would like to talk to me personally about anything pertaining to community paramedicine or anything with the fire department. Go to our website, springfieldtownship.org. It has all of my information. And I would welcome to talk to them personally, or feel free to stop by, 9150 Winton Road, and I, again, would sit down and talk to them personally. And he is very personable. That's why we're here today. Thank you, Jason. Chief, thanks for joining us. Always a pleasure. And I always want to thank you for joining us as well. You have been You've been enjoying another installment here of Talking with Springfield Township. The
window to your township. Have a great evening. We'll see you next time.